Hello, everybody. Spirit 420 here because I'm lighting a joint, and that in itself is so 420. Nope. Spirit 420 because everything I do is, in fact, so 420. And another day, another 420 day, another 420 moment. Let's see where to start off. So, Mom and I are fighting. So, I'm not going to talk about it other than to say, I love you, Mom. And no matter what, I will always love you till the end of time, forever and always. But part of loving parents, it's the same thing that we deal with, right? And loving children is, I don't want to use, well, I'll use this adage and then let me clarify. So, we don't pick our family, right? And you don't have to necessarily like family. You have to love them. Now, having said that, if my mom is indeed watching, I want her to know that I love her too. I do love her and I do like her. Okay. But just like my son, funny enough, I have to look at my son because it's coming. It's on its way. Everything will be okay. I've gotten to a point in my life where I feel, I'm looking up as well as down. So when I deal with my mother, I now have a child to deal with and compare it to, right? Which has to be part of what she's going through because she's, in fact, a parent to me. Now, granted, the age differences are slightly different. And what I mean by that is my kids are in their 20s. Her child is in his 50s, right? But there's still the parent-child mentality. And what I mean by that, in the simplest of terms, is we have a hard time hearing shit from our children. We really do. I don't care who we are. I have a hard time hearing it from my children, as I'm sure my mother has a hard time hearing it from me, as I'm sure my kids will have a hard time hearing it from my grandkids, and that'll be funny. Then I'll be in my mother's position now, right? Where she's watching my boys, give me shit. So, anywho, what I mainly wanted to talk about tonight was something that happened the other day, and I started talking about it, and this is one of those fine lines, and let me explain what I mean by that right out of the gate. I'm trying to only say nice things, and if you have nothing nice to say nothing at all. However, every rule has a reason to be broken, number one. And number two, that's really talking about, life in general. And what I'm trying to point out here is where have we gotten, right? Where have we as a society gotten if you find this to be rude versus this to be polite? And I'm going to discuss that here in a minute. So, obviously I have my stake in the game and I have my opinion, right? I find what happened the other night to be extremely rude. And it would have never been allowed as I was a kid, and I would never allow my kids. So it's not just, it's not just my generation, but definitely my mother's generation who lives here with me and absolutely agreed with me. So, anywho, let's see. Let me remember I got to remember what night it was. I want to say this was Saturday night. I'm pretty sure it was, but let me just cancel. And where's the info? Okay, so yeah, this was Saturday night. And the first recording, I have a couple of recordings to share with you guys. The first one was 12:48, right? The next one, just keep this in mind, was 12:56. So we're talking about in the morning, right? So one was 1:45, one was 5 minutes to 1. The recordings. Now, I am a bit of a rock and roller, and I was a drug dealer, right? So I always pushed the noise ordinance when I was coming of age, But just to step back and talk about the 70s and 80s when I was raised, You basically, and I lived in a neighborhood where it wasn't as close, quite as close as these houses, but pretty darn close. Like, I think there was maybe 20 feet, not even a full 10 yards between an end of one home and the beginning, the other end of the other home. Let's get that back in there. All right. So therefore, sorry, I didn't know it was blurry for those of you who whatever. We pretty much shut it down, except for summers. And what I mean by that is really in the summertime, we would go sometimes till 10 or 11. All right. Now, to give you an example, what I mean by that is Friday and Saturday nights during school, we shut it down. We might sometimes, if we had the time, the daylight, then we might have been allowed to go past 9 o'clock. But other than that, pretty much throughout the school year, Monday through Friday, definitely. So, in fact, if I remember, I think Monday through Friday it was, get in by 8 because we had to do homework and shit like that, right? And Friday and Saturdays, you could definitely stay out till 9, and depending on the time of year, you could stay out even later. Now, in the summer, those rules drastically changed, and what I mean by that is we pretty much had till, most nights we had definitely till like 9, 10 o'clock even, and on the weekends it was more like 11 o'clock. And when I was growing up, we played a lot of flashlight tag, and that was one of our favorite games growing up. I still remember it to this day, as well as bottle rocket wars. We had tons of bottle rocket wars, right? That was a normal thing, particularly in a state where it was legal to buy fireworks. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm just writing something down here. But regardless, we had a curfew. We had a time that pretty much the neighborhood had agreed upon. And this was a neighborhood of, I'm trying to guesstimate, probably, I want to say there was at least 100, maybe 110 homes. So you're talking about somewhere between 500-600 people, right? Depending. But we had to be quiet. And as I was raising my children, I've lived in a few different neighborhoods. I've also been in apartment complexes, and the same rules really apply because most of us were raised by the same standards. So when I say I'm a lenient person, just know, that I'm lenient. And what I mean by that is the ordinance now and the way they do things now, they have the noise ordinance here. Technically speaking, it kicks in at 7 p.m., right? Even on the weekends. Well, I didn't care about any of that. And it's funny because it's right actually when these kids started making noise. So the first incident I'm going to talk about, there's 2 incidences. One is a dog, and that one's kind of changed. So I'll just talk about it and see what your opinion is. But the other one is these kids, right? So this is like 3 houses down. And they start at 7 o'clock, and they got a trampoline, and they are just going. I mean, screaming, hooting, hollering, blah, 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 blah. All the way up until, what was it? I think I called around, or I finally asked them to be quiet. It was 11:30. That's when I finally asked them to be quiet, right? It's like, hey, please, it's 11:30. Please quiet it down. There's other people, right? What's up, Tom? How you doing, man? I talked to a Tom today. He was an asshole. You are not, Tom. Nice to see you, buddy. Back to where we're at. Okay, so I yelled down, hey, it's 11:30. Can we quiet down? They just kept going. They kept going. A few minutes later, I yelled again. When I say a few minutes later, like literally 5 minutes later. So it was like 20 till midnight. Nothing. 1:45, I go upstairs on our second floor so that I could hang my head out the window and see where I was, right? See where I was yelling, excuse me. And now you'll see it here in the video. And I yelled really nice. I was like, hey, if you don't quiet down, I'm going to call the police. I mean, it's literally 11:45. My kids are in bed, and they're, you know, they're not in bed, but they're in for the night, and they're downstairs playing in their playroom. They're actually in the basement, so there's no way anybody can hear them. So I gave him a warning, and when I said that, the response that I got, and I didn't record this unfortunately, but the response that I got from the adult was, "Go ahead, fuck you, fuck off." It's only a 5-year-old, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, but it's only a 5-year-old. Again, remember, this is 1:45. Just belligerent, clearly somebody who was drunk, right? Now we're talking almost midnight in a neighborhood, and it's, granted, it's summer. That's why I let it go till 11, like I said, 11:30 even. And here's one of the caveats. Before I asked, we overheard, before I threatened to call the police, which I hate doing. Can't stand doing that. It's like the worst thing, because I fucking can't stand the police anyway. I don't care where we are. I don't believe. And I've had some friends who are cops, so I know it's not the truth. But to me, so let me put it like this: I've had really good friends who are good police officers in the military, regular police officers, even jailhouse police officers. I've had some of those, right? I've also had SLED agents. If you don't know what that is, but it's a South Carolina, kind of like a GBI, which is a Georgia Bureau of Investigation, but SLED was the maybe it was just the narcotics. It doesn't matter. I've had a lot of friends in there in that arena, and that's how I know some of them are bad, because some of those guys were bad, some of them were really great. The bad ones would tell you how many bad ones there were, and the great ones would tell you how many bad ones there were, and it was always a lopsided that most cops. So when you call on an officer for help, it is a roll of the dice, even according to law enforcement friends, and this has been since the late 80s that I've had these friends. It's a roll of the dice whether or not you're going to get a truly ethical one, or whether you're going to get, somebody who's in it for the wrong reasons. And that's all I'll say. Okay. Regardless, I didn't want to call the cops. And before I called the cops, we overheard the adult female even say, "Hey, quiet. It's time to quiet down, and it's getting late, blah, blah, blah." That was like 11:15. So here we are. Now, I have a few different problems. Number one, calling the police nowadays is ridiculously hard if you do not call 911, and they only want you calling 911, as we all know, if you have an actual emergency. I think it's funny because there's all these places that I can call, and the first thing on their messages are always, "If this is an emergency, please call 911. But I don't, you can't get anybody on the phone if it's not an emergency. So I got somebody on the phone. I made the report, and we waited and waited. They finally took the kids in, but we recorded some footage just before I called the police back, or we recorded some sound. Actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. We recorded this sound, and then they finally sent the kids to bed. They finally called them in at 1:35 in the morning. So if you remember, I originally asked them to be quiet. They've been going since 7, right? I asked them, they were asked to be quiet by their own adult at 11:15. I asked them to be quiet at 11:30. I threatened police at 11:45. I called police. We recorded this stuff at 1:45 and 1:55, and I'll play that for you here in a minute. And they finally brought the kids in at 1:35. 1:35 in the morning, a 5-year-old. Now, I'm just curious. If anybody is watching, I'm seriously just curious. Would you let your 5-year-old be on a trampoline at 1:35 in the fucking morning screaming bloody murder? It's just a question I have. You know, I'm curious of other people's opinions because I was raised one way and I have a belief. I have, how do you say, I have a belief system that tells me that, you know, I don't think you would have seen that kind of behavior back in the fucking old West. And kids were even more responsible and got a lot more. They were still expected to be in by dark. You know, even I understand it's their own backyard, but this is summertime. This is the mountains. This is the Rockies. This is a place where most people don't have air conditioners, funny enough. And if they do, it's just window units like they have out the one I have here. Homes weren't built with it. They're now putting them in because the planet is not getting hotter, by the way. But nonetheless, most people put their windows up. They have their windows up with their screens down, right? So that they get a nice breeze through the home. Well, you know, I promise you, you can just hear shit. Like, it was like they were right here. Wait till I play the record. Isn't it? It is wild. Right. Mine, by the time they put their kids, brought them in, which obviously was not the end of their night either, Tom. At 1:35, my kids were passed out. And if they were awake, if one of them was awake, it might have been the 11-year-old. He was on his tablet watching videos about to pass out because it's Saturday night. So I have to play this for you. Okay, here's the first one. Now, the first one, and I'll try not to skip through it. I know it's a little bit boring, but it's only like 4.5 minutes. I just want y'all to hear and keep this in mind. So I want to make sure that I have this correct. Let me lower that. Oops. All right. So video one. Oh, it's going to start playing it here on my computer. That's not what I wanted. Video one was 12:48 in the morning. So 10 till 1. Okay. And the other one was, oh, shoot. I told you a minute ago, but one was 12 to 1. The other one, I have to look here to see it. So the other one was 4 minutes to 1 o'clock. Okay. So 4 minutes to 1 o'clock. Just keep those times in mind. One's 12 minutes, one's 4 minutes. And the reason that we did the two different things, you'll find I cut one, but one was second floor, hanging out, not really hanging out my window, but the window wide open and just hanging the phone out the window and recording them straight eye shot, right? The next one was out in front of my home. So that's the backyard, right? And there, it's one of these, you know, it's just like a normal neighborhood. You got rows of homes, right? So the backs of homes are facing the other backs of homes, and the fronts of homes are facing across the street to the other fronts of homes, right? So we recorded one because it was just ridiculous, and that's the one we recorded the longest amount of, because you could hear them. I mean, it was just, more than anything, we wanted to get proof of how obnoxious they were being. Because, by the way, the cops never came. Just let me go ahead and say that. Police never showed up, ever. Okay. And I have more to that. Like I said, it's crazy the times that we live in and what people have actually been able to get away with now, and why things are the way they are. This is why this is happening, right? So police never came. I made that call at 11. They screamed for another 2.5 hours after I talked, 2 hours and 45 minutes after I spoke to police, and police never showed up. Okay. I literally called them off because we wanted to go to bed, and they finally had put their kids to bed. So, the second video is out front, and I thought it was extremely important to be able to hear how loud it was from the front yard. So, you know, if you will, my house is here, right? This being the back of the house. These people are down, I'm going the wrong way, like down here, okay, to the back of the house. They're down here like 1, 2, 3 homes and back over, right? And so here's the home. I went to the front of the house. Well, technically, Mrs. Spirit of 420 went to the front of the house and started recording. So here it is. And you can see that. I don't even think, well, she was recording it. She might have been a little, what's the word? Zoomed in. Okay, but this is 12 minutes. So this, by the way, we're already 45 seconds in. So technically now we're talking like 10 minutes to 1 in the morning. I have to share it all with you because you question yourself in these situations when somebody curses at you, and I'll talk about that here in a minute too, because it's driving around town. Do you see how many kids there are? I don't know if you guys can see, but they are jumping. And it's if you're looking at the screen, it's over to the left where it's kind of gray, and that's where the trampoline is. The right is the back of their house, right? And then you can kind of see them. I wish I had something to control the brightness, and I didn't think about that before. You're gonna see, but I mean, they're just jumping, and there's like at least 4 or 5 kids. I mean, you can hear them, like you can hear that many distinct voices. Listen to that. How freaking loud is that? It's like just insane, man. Insanity. It really is to me. I can't. If I had done this as a kid and made this kind of noise, first of all, my father literally back in when I was 5, 1977, yeah, he would have smacked the shit out of me for making this kind of noise. And what's funny is, I asked him, but the adults stood up for these kids. He's only 5. I mean, let's just talk about that for a minute. Here, I'll let this is almost done. Not quite. Listen. I don't know if you can hear, but they have the door. You can see the doors open. The adults are talking pretty loud. They're just not out there with the kids, and they're just letting the kids go to town. Just go to town. Honestly, Tom, I want to use a word bigger than dang. You know what I mean? And much with a lot more emphasis. Is this where they start singing? Yep. So in the video, just so you know, 3 minutes 45 seconds have transpired now. So like it was just, and what you're hearing is what we heard from 7 p.m. until 1:35 in the morning. 1:35 in the morning. Now this was 4 minutes to 1 out front. Just keep that in mind. So went out front. That's the front of the house. Now you can't really see anything, so here I'll change this and make it a little bit different because you won't, this is like almost all dark. But just listen. From the front of the fucking home. Yeah, that's I'm gonna put that up. That's a good idea, Tom. Although, and this is a state where it's legal, but I'm the one that would actually get in trouble for that. And it's funny because you can hear it. Here, I talk about here in a minute. I'm just going to be quiet, but you can hear the adults egging them on. Just listen. I was talking about it because you could hear the dude. So I told you the first time the woman cursed me out, right? But then later, when we were recording that, they were now both adults, at least the two that I guess lived there, were outside and they were egging them on. And one's like GD this and GD that, and you could tell they were inebriated, right? Whatever that fucking word is. I'm stoned, so I can't say it. But here's my point. The parents are drunk and out of control, and they're not checked, right? So you have kids who are not checked. Here's where it starts. That means somewhere back in the day, these people believed it was okay, and their parents, most likely, the grandparents of these yelling, screaming, trampoline fuckers, in my belief, at some point, the ones that are now parents had to get away with the same kind of shit. This is generational stuff. You know what I mean? It's a thing of morals. What is morally right? What is morally wrong? You know. And when somebody to me, when somebody at 11:45 yells that they're going to call the police if you don't quiet down, and your city has a statute that says, an ordinance that says at 7 o'clock you have a noise thing, right? And this is again quarter to midnight. The first response should not be to F off. The first response should not be, maybe, okay, so I apologize. I should not say should. In my opinion, the first response, I can't justify the first response being to tell that person to F off because they're trying to have a quiet latter half of the evening. Even when I threw parties, man, we kept the noise on the inside. Like we would have people parked up and down the street, but you know what? It really wasn't that loud outside the home. And we made sure of that. Like if you want to party, that's fine, man. I get that. Everybody has their own personal preference. But what happens outside is it's a community it's society. Like you're part of a society, And where the hell there it is. I don't know. When you do that and you hear it, he's only 5. Like, what are those kids gonna do? Do you get what I'm saying? Like they're gonna be running wild. And I know it happened because it happens and it's been happening for a while. It's not like this is new. It's just there's more of it today. There's more of what I consider unchecked behavior going on than ever. All right. But when I was a kid and I started smoking pot when I was 14. So I was either 14, or 15, right? And my mother's a friend of my mother's had a girlfriend of his over, right? Just a friend, but she had kids. And he even told me, he's like, they smoke pot and they curse and all this. But I didn't know, like I was 14, 15, right? And I waited until I was 14 and started smoking for the most part with my mother. Okay. Right after these kids got there, we ended up going for a walk. And I was just blown away, dude, because one kid was maybe 8 or 9 and the other kid was like 11 or 12, kind of what the age of mine are now. And it blows me away because mine are 9 and 11. And it's literally like me trying to remember back or watching my 9-11-year-old just curse up a storm and taking bull hits and ripping joints and talking about, ridiculousness. The kid, the oldest of the two, was well younger than me, but rolled a better joint than me already, Well, it's funny, and blah 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 as that sounds, and it's a cool story, and I may write about it one day. At the time, even at the time, I was like, wow, this is fucking insane. These kids are way out of control. But what I think about now is this is the byproduct of that. Because if you raise your kids like that, they're going to raise their kids like that, and so on and so forth. It's just the way it is, right? And what really sucks, here's what bothers me about the whole situation. And I want to say this in the right way. They're still unchecked because of the police. At 1:45, we called the police and said, hey, they have finally quieted down, please don't come. But I got the recordings, which are time stamped, and that can't be faked, which thank goodness. So I was talking to a lady. I was like, hey, I'm going to come by tomorrow, or I'd like somebody to still come by so I can file a complaint. This is what I was told. Now I know that my city is different, so this may not be everywhere, but I thought it was appalling. And it goes to show you why nobody's checked, right? First of all, it was nearly 3 hours to raise your hand if you think the cops were going to be there by 2, because I don't fucking think so. I don't even think they were anywhere close to being there. Because it's Saturday night and they have what they consider to be much higher priority calls than a disturbance call, right? Even though the time and the ridiculousness of it doesn't matter if someone's in a shootout or someone's shooting up drugs or whatever the fuck's going on. If they're prostituting, that's a bigger crime to them. So this family is still unchecked. They think, and I don't even care that they feel like they got the best of me. That's not what I'm talking about. They think that that they said the right thing and did the right thing and shut me up, and that their behavior is acceptable. You see what I'm saying? And what the cops told me, the lady, the female I talked to, what she said is, first of all, I was like, okay, what I said, because everything is online. So I was like, okay, I'll go online tomorrow and I'll file a full complaint and upload my videos, right? The first thing she immediately said is, oh, you can't file online. You can't file noise ordinance online. You can file some serious shit on this fucking website, folks. I mean, some serious fucking shit, but you can't file a noise ordinance violation. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's when I said, okay, I'll come by, or, maybe y'all can still come out later, during the day when there's not a lot going on, when you have the time. You can only call us when it's happening. Dude, that is like setting people up to be assholes, and nobody's ever going to say anything about them. If you're taking 3 hours to get out there and reprimand the people, what the fuck? Like, what? This is what I mean by the opening statement. Society is now unchecked. There's too many people for not enough enforcement for the light stuff. Okay. And what I mean by that is, personally, I think they should go on a hiring hiatus and have people who are in place at a time when it's maybe known to be high volume, right? That can take the lesser stuff, but there's still I guess I'll just use pillar of justice, right? They're a pillar of enforcement. because I'm basically stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, if you just heard it, you heard it. Like, even though I have recordings, they mean nothing because I can only report this crime when it's going on, and they have to hear it. There's the third one. There's the third and final trick to it. You cannot file online. It has to be going on, and it still has to be going on when the police get there. What the fuck, man? Am I the only one that's just like adding that up? And like you literally made these laws so that nobody can basically complain about noise ordinance when you have a 3.5 to 4 hour delay. I mean, no offense, but if you call the police and on anything that's illegal, it should not take them 3 hours to send somebody by. Number one, that just is, to me, completely out of hand. You know, what if the noise ordinance? Because I told them that the kids were screaming bloody murder. What if they were getting hurt? You know, or what if it was a lady screaming? Excuse me. And that's what I'll do next time, just to let y'all know. I will not tell them that it's kids, right? I'll just say there's somebody screaming bloody murder. You need to send police over here. This is bad. It's almost midnight. You know. What you got? You can wait patiently and still not get anything done. Exactly. I get it. Thank you, Princess Buttercup. Buttercup. Sorry. Love the movie Princess Bride. Because Princess Buttercup was the Princess Bride. I told you I wanted to talk about the dog a little bit too. So that one was, if you look out the back and go 3 houses down to the left, this one is the one that is diagonal to ours. So these are literally just straight rectangles here. Okay, so when it cuts through, it's the same on the other side. It's not even, you know, there's just, it's straight rectangles to corner. Okay, so my catty corner neighbor from the backyard got a dog, and it was a puppy, and it's summertime. We're having, now I will say this, we are having an exceptionally strange summer. Not only is it hot as balls when it is hot, but it's almost regularly raining every day, reminiscent of back in the day of Florida, back in the days of Florida. Like it literally feels like I'm in Florida weather right now, because every day you can almost wind your clock to the rain. So anyway, these folks, I'll keep this one short. These folks, I was about to say something to them as well. Actually, well, I wasn't going to say anything because with dogs and being such close proximity, I was going to make it anonymous. Well, guess what? You still can't do anything. You can't even do it anonymous. Like, what kind of fucking shit is that, dude? I don't want a fucking bloodthirsty neighbor after me out for redemption, but you have to you can't even make an anonymous complaint that's legitimate and let them wonder who it is. Today is just so different than what it used to be. You're setting someone up for neighborhood drama, right? But anyway, anywho, I was starting to wake up every day about the time that people go to work, right? Because I get to sleep in. I'm a loser. I have no life, no job. By the way, that's a joke. I am a loser, but I have a life. I'm teasing. I'm not a loser. I'm only teasing, folks. But I do not have a job, and I do sleep late right now. And I've been trying to get better on that, just on a heads up. But this started really in the midst of me being depressed as shit. And what I mean by that is I was sleeping pretty much till 10:30 every day, right? Well, by 8:30, this dog was outside just, I mean, it was the most pathetic wail. You could tell it was not just attention, it was heat and everything else, and there was no doghouse. There's no shelter. There's no place for the dog. We couldn't even see water, but I think my wife said she finally saw that there was a water dish. But there was no shelter to escape either the sun or the rain, right? And it was just killing me. So, I mean, again, I have another question. Nothing wrong with sleeping in, right? There's not. Thank you, Tom. So I have another question for those who are still here and with us. If you love animals like I do, okay, so that is one prerequisite. You've got to have a love for animals. I truly feel like animals are just like anything else on this in this plane of existence and have a soul. In fact, we might even be able to reincarnate to or from an animal, right? Anyway, that's just personal beliefs on a side note. So I have a great love and a great respect for animals. We treat our animals like one of the family, right? Truly, they get almost all the same. In fact, sometimes I even say, is this your house? I forget sometimes to my own dogs because they get more attention and get away with more shit than I do. Okay. So this dog is crying for what really boils down to, in my opinion, is neglect. The neglect is so bad. This dog is crying, and it doesn't stop. It starts at 8:30, and it goes on like pretty much through the whole day until they get home, right? Yes, so do ours, Tom. We have. I'll literally take a picture sometime, but they have a love seat, and the love seat has a cover. In fact, we're getting a new cover. Because right now we use one of two big ass blankets, but we're going to get an actual love seat cover. But that's their couch, and they also have the couch, and technically speaking, both of the leather chairs we're fine with because they don't, they're Italian leather. I know that people like Italian leather. Yeah, we're fine with it because you can clean the leather and they don't do any damage to the leather. So. With the I have a line in my head. With the stories, all I could think about was who's seen it, Step Brothers. I was just thinking about Adam and that when he's the dickhead brother. So that's fucking hysterical. My wife's gonna be laughing. Their couch is leather as well. That's fucking hysterical. So here's my question. Well, let me say this real quick. It finally stopped, and I was about fed up with it, but it finally stopped, and they're no longer leaving the dog out, or something's being done. The dog's staying in. I don't know. I don't know if somebody already said something to them that maybe cares about them, a neighbor, a closer neighbor, but I was about to call animal control as well as the police, whoever it took, and I want to know if y'all agree on that because these are things that I used to fucking can't stand people would do on me, right? But and when I say on me is the noise, particularly, I never really did anything wrong with my dogs. But wouldn't you, like, if you see it, are you okay with it? I can't do that. I can't see an injustice going on and just idly sit by. My wife can't stand it because when we're driving around, like, I can't even stand people driving incorrectly. It just, oh my God. I'm very guilty of road rage. It's one of the reasons why I have extremely tinted windows and usually drive with the windows up and the air conditioner on even in the summer because I can flip you off, I can curse you out, and you don't know any better, so I don't get into a fight with you, right? Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Tom says he gets it. But I just, I know that I have the rule, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. And that rule applies to sharing, like sharing your peace of mind, having positive vibes and having that stuff. But if you're doing that stuff and you see somebody else doing either A, breaking the law, or B, hurting something that is living, aren't we to the point where that is, or am I supposed to shut up and not, but I thought we were at the time, like you wouldn't see a kid getting beat and be okay with it. You're not allowed to. You're supposed to say something and report it. Isn't that the same thing when a dog is being, treated inhumanely, literally? I feel like it is. I don't, I know that probably comes across and some people may be like, you're a little tattletale bitch. And I hear that, but to me, we draw a line. And the reason we draw that line is because as we were growing up and as we were being raised by our parents before us and our grandparents before us, our teachers before us, we were put in check. We were told this is this, right? Now, I get that whatever you're taught from those people could also be a little twisted. And what I mean by that is if they are looking at things incorrectly, right? And you go, well, and what I mean by you go is usually by the time we are in our early 20s, right? About the time that we can legally drink, we start to take all the information that we've processed and then we draw our own lines, right? Some of it, I would say actually probably 75% of what I was taught, I absolutely agreed with. Probably another 20% of it, I agreed with, but had alterations, and maybe 5% of it I didn't disagree with and just changed my view, right? And I would imagine, I may be speaking out of my ass here, but I would imagine that most people are fairly similar. And what I mean by that is, for the most part, they agree with almost everything that they were taught by their parents and elders and their masters of everything as they're growing up. Because it also ends up including, and I know you'll get this, but by the time you're in your early 20s, you've usually had a few jobs, so you also have your bosses, principals, not just teachers, right? Anybody that has any kind of authority, right? And so you develop your right and wrong, and then again you redevelop it. Typically speaking, you fine tune it once kids are born, because you got to pass it on to them. So I don't want to say anything bad. I'll just say this: it's hard to look around today and what's the word? I didn't want to put that negative. It's hard to look around. Sometimes when you're trying to see the positive, it's very difficult today when you see so many people being negative. But just remember this: negativity is actually, it really is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, understand what I'm saying, but it's more potent. It's more potent. Therefore, on one hand, and on one side of it, if you will, it's more powerful. Now, funny enough, to me, it's it's fleeting. Therefore, it doesn't necessarily last as long, so it can be kind of defeated more. But my whole point is this: is it only takes a little bit of negativity because it is more potent. We've talked about this on other episodes. So when you see the negative stuff happening, what ends up happening is just like that I bitch at my kids for. I might have had 25 positive things happen to me that day, but the thing that sticks in my head many times are the 5 negative moments that happen. And if you're like me, then try to do this. Okay. Here's the real meaning of today's episode. If you fall into that same category, which a lot of us do, right? Because the negative is more potent, we pay attention to it more and we forget about all the good stuff, right? So I have an exercise for you. It's not unlike something you've probably heard before. But when you start doing that, right? Like today, I had this horrible driver, right? So when you start doing that and you're recalling a moment where somebody was just a total dick, just totally negative and all that good stuff, do this little tiny exercise. It's allow that to be the catalyst for you to pay something nice forward. And before you pay it forward, because it's not always going to present itself right away, just think for every one of those bad things that you think of 3 positives instead of being the opposite, where we think about all the negatives and forget the positives. Because if you look back through your day, you'll find more positives, generally speaking, happened in your day than negatives. But again, it's that piece of us that, pays attention to the negative more. But trust me on this, just try it. For every negative thing that you start thinking of at the end of the day, think about 3, 4, maybe even 5 positive things. And also if you feel something negative, plan a way of paying it forward that's the exact opposite. Whatever they did to you, pay it forward to someone else in the opposite direction. And I know you understand what I mean by opposite, but let's say here's an easy one. Let's say somebody just cut you off and almost caused an accident. Okay, well, the next time you're out driving, then allow somebody to go so that you guarantee they don't get into an accident. You know what I mean? There you go. I hope everybody had a good week so far. Thank God it's Friday. Tomorrow's Friday. I will definitely be here Saturday. I might do a show tomorrow. We'll see. But I've got a lot of stuff that I'm trying to get done. So it is, I just have a lot on me. And when I've already talked about this before, but I've coming out of a depression, I'm playing catch up for a little while. So, and I have to muster the strength. You know what I mean? Mayo. I just had to say it. Anyway, I love all you guys. I love everybody. Each and every one of you are special, incredible, awesome people. The fact that you are unique and only you can think for you, that is what makes you incredibly special and makes you a very unique piece of this puzzle that we call life. And just keep this thought in mind. It's not how much money that you have at the end of your life. Does that even fucking matter? No. So live your life to the fullest. Don't put all your attention into money. Put your attention into family and loved ones and that kind of thing, and see how much happier you'll be. I promise. Anyway, I love all you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again in a couple of days. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Peace. Love you.
I switch here, I'm a strange fuck. Consist on ain't something I could say well. Throw my change into the wishing for a change well. Wish a day is swell life for the next come. And when the next come, pretend that it's the best one. Like I ain't even gonna try and say that to the next one.